This week on Today's Homeowner, we're working on making your home a safer place for the whole family. Stay with us. We'll have some great solutions for the dangers you already know about and the ones you may not even see coming. All right, thanks for the ride. No, we're not changing the format of the show to one of those that feature a lot of disaster videos that you see on TV all the time. We're sticking to what we always do, helping you make your home a better place. Now, obviously, this week we're talking a little bit about fire safety and different tips that you have that you need to pay attention to at your home, but we're also going to look at some less obvious dangers in your home and show you how to protect yourself and your family. Now, we'll be talking to these guys in just a little bit about fighting fires, but before we do that, let's talk about your first line of defense, the smoke detector. Now, if you own a home, you should know that you should have one of these, but you may not know what kind to have or where exactly to locate it in your home. So here's the deal. For residential use, there are two basic types: optical sensors and ionization sensors. Now, the optical units are less prone to false alarms from kitchen steam and that sort of thing, but they tend to react more quickly to smoldering smoky fires. The ionization sensors are a little less expensive, but are better at catching flaming or hot fires. So which do you choose? Well, the answer may be both. Now, although they cost a little more, some manufacturers now offer detectors that include both types of sensors in one unit for even better protection. Now, in order for them to do their job, though, they have to be in the right location, which means at least one on every level of your home, preferably close to the bedroom so that they can detect smoke quickly and alert your family to the danger. Now, how they do that is another matter. Some, like this one, have the option of a voice alarm instead of just the traditional beeping sound.
Welcome. First alert, carbon monoxide and smoke alarm. No location programmed.
Plus, this one uses a wireless signal to communicate with other units in other parts of your home so that when one alarm sounds, they all sound. The voice alarm even identifies the area where the smoke is detected. That's a great idea for larger or more multi-leveled houses because early detection is your best defense against fire. So, once you know there's a problem, what do you do next?
Well, I think that's probably a question best left for the professionals. Dan Pose has been fighting fires for many years. Dan, what do you do next?
Well, when in doubt, you get out. If you don't feel comfortable, leave it to the professionals. Anything larger than a small kitchen garbage can is too big for the average homeowner.
Typically, what do you would say is the most common kitchen, or is it kitchen fire, I would assume?
Kitchen fires are probably the most common. They start with a pot on the stove.
Okay, let's talk about fire extinguishers then, because we've talked about many times you've got to have one in the home, but you don't want to hide it away. Tell us about what we need to look for.
At any home center, you can get what's called an ABC fire extinguisher. A meaning it puts out trash, wood, and paper. B, liquids. And C, electrical equipment.
As far as where it should be placed?
I like them close to an exit, somewhere where on your way out, you can try if you want to, or leave it where it's at and get out and let the professionals handle it.
Okay, well, we've got a fire going here. Certainly we didn't want to start one in a home, but we did put it outside here. Tell us the procedure as far as putting one of these out. And Terry, we've got another firefighter who's actually going to demonstrate this for us.
It's called the pass method. It's pull, aim, squeeze, and sweep. Pull the trigger, aim the extinguisher, squeeze the nozzle, and sweep it from right to left on the fire.
Just like that fireman said, your best protection, of course, is to get out. But what if you're above the ground floor and the stairwell is blocked? Well, take a look at this. This right here is a collapsible escape ladder. And what you want to do is this. Lock it into place, secure it over the edge, and then pull the tab. What that's going to do is release the ladder down 13 feet, which should safely get you to the ground floor. Now again, this is only going to work and be safe if all your family members know where it is and how to work it.
Another thing you'll want to protect your family from is carbon monoxide, which is a byproduct of fire. Gas-burning appliances like water heaters, stoves, furnaces, and fireplaces give off carbon monoxide, which is supposed to be vented completely out of your home. Now, this gas is a deadly poison, so when it builds up in a home, the results are tragic. And because it's colorless and odorless, a carbon monoxide detector is the only way to know if you have a problem. Now, you can find these things as standalone units that can just plug right into the wall or just sit it on a tabletop, but most manufacturers also offer them in a combination device that detects smoke as well as carbon monoxide. That way, there's one less battery to remember to replace. Now, speaking of that, these devices need batteries either as a backup or for primary power, but they won't protect you. The battery is dead, so change them every 6 months. Now, the detectors won't last forever either, so write the date when you buy the unit on the back of these. That way you'll see exactly how old they are and when you need to replace the unit every time you change the batteries.
We all drive around with stuff in the trunk of our car or minivan, but the challenge is how do you keep it organized and prevent it from sliding around as you're driving? One solution is to buy a bin or a milk crate and put the items in there. But the problem is that doesn't keep the bin itself from sliding around. So I was looking at the trunk and I noticed that it's lined with a material that's sort of like a fabric or a carpeting. And I wondered if a hook and loop fastener would stick to that. And sure enough, it does. So I went to a hardware store and I bought a 2-inch wide strip of hook and loop fastener, peeled off the backing, and stuck it to the bottom of this bin. Now when you set it in the trunk and press it down, it actually sticks to this liner and it doesn't slide around as much. Now this comes with a lid that you can snap on, but I prefer to leave it off. This way you can put grocery bags in it. And you see a trunk this size, you actually have room for 2 bins. And the nice thing is you can always just pull them out of the way and use the trunk if you want the full open space. So you can try this trick if you've got some junk in your trunk.
This week we're looking at ways to make your home more safe, and we've already looked at a number of obvious ones like how to fight a fire and how to escape that fire. Now, we've also looked at some other things like carbon monoxide, which is a very dangerous situation in your home, but not readily apparent. And that's what you'll find with a lot of contaminants around your home, that they're dangerous, but just not that easy to identify. I hate to even ask what's going on now.
Danny, don't you realize you could be in imminent danger right now? Radon gas is shooting out from the granite.
What Alan's talking about is the things that you're hearing so much about these days is the radon that's emitted into your home from granite countertops. And you know, radon is an invisible gas, and in some parts of the country, depending on the geological makeup of a home, it can seep up into your home in such a concentrated fashion it can be a problem. In those cases, you need to have it tested, but in other cases, radon is all throughout the interior and exterior of your home because of the natural materials that your home's made of, but rarely is it a concern, particularly with granite.
In fact, there actually were some tests that determined if you had a house that had the worst ventilation and the highest concentration of radon and granite, even then it would still be 6 times less than the levels that are outside.
Well, Alan, do you feel a little better about this?
I do, but what about the water?
Okay, well, Alan might be overreacting just a little bit again, but you know what? You do need to make sure that the quality of the water in your house is good. Now, we all know how hazardous lead can be, especially if you live in an older home. Now, some older homes, when they were built, when the copper piping was joined together with the solder contained lead, so that lead can leach into the water. Nowadays, of course, solder is lead-free, so you don't have to worry about it so much now. But in older homes, it is still a good idea to test your water, even if you get that annual report from your city or county telling you that your water is good. All you got to do to test your water is just go down to the hardware store and pick up one of these. It tells you everything that it tests for. Once you determine what's in your water, you can now filter that out. Now, I've got here on the floor a filtration system. Now, this tells you everything that it'll filter for, but on the back, it really gets into the percentages in which it filters everything out. Now, it's very easy to install, but again, it's really important that you change out your filters when the manufacturer tells you to ensure the safety of your water.
Water is not the only area of your home where you have to be concerned about lead, especially if you live in a home that was built before 1978. The paint on the outside and inside of your home could contain lead. Now, over the years, it's probably been painted over, but if you're doing a little renovation where you might be sanding and scraping or removing sections of trim or baseboard, that lead dust could become airborne. So it's a good idea to have it tested before you start any renovation in your home. Now you can hire a professional or you can do it yourself with a lead test kit. You may need to scratch or scrape the surface to get down to the paint layers below before you swab the surface with the test solution. In this case, the swab changes to black, yellow, or brown if lead is present. Well, it looks like we have some lead paint to deal with on this renovation, but we're going to be following some very specific guidelines from the EPA on exactly how to take care of this paint and keep it nice and safe.
Danny insisted I crawl into this house to talk about another potential hazard. Thanks a lot, Danny. Aside from all the bugs and other varmints, a crawl space can be a breeding ground for mold. Now, here's the bad news. It's not always that easy to solve. First and foremost, you've got to have adequate ventilation. Plenty of moving air will keep that moisture away, and that's what mold needs to grow. Now, in the case of torrential rainfall or even flooding, water can come under the house. Make sure it doesn't have a place to stay by getting rid of all those low spots, filling them up with sand. Then you want to take a layer of plastic, no less than 6 mil in thickness, and put it over the entire crawl space. Take it one step further, put another layer of sand on top of the plastic. It's an awful lot of work, but it'll do the trick. Did I mention I'm claustrophobic?
I came across this new heat-seeking tool from General the other day, and to be honest, at first I thought it was strictly for professional use, but I think I'm ready to eat my own words. First of all, it's really affordable at less than 70 bucks. Second, there are a ton of things you can do with this. You can conduct your own energy audit by pointing it at walls or ceilings to find gaps in your insulation and check around doors and windows to detect energy loss. Aim the laser pointer at what you want to scan and you get an instant temperature reading within a range of -4 degrees up to 605 degrees Fahrenheit. You can even use it to find potential fire hazards like overloaded circuit breakers before they cause any damage. But the last reason I like it is because it's just plain fun. On top of all of these things, I just found out you can also use it when you go fishing to find the best spots in the pond. Guess I'm gonna have to pick up 3 more for Danny, Alan, and Joe.
We're looking at ways to make your home safer this week, and that's particularly important if you have small kids around your home. You know, there's some very obvious things you can do, like adding child-proof locks to all of your cabinet doors, or maybe a child-proof lock on that refrigerator, because refrigerators are big enough that a small child could actually crawl inside and get trapped. But there's another hazard a lot of people aren't even aware of. It has to do with your stove, particularly a freestanding model like this one that millions and millions of homes across America have one just like this. And the problem is, if you open the door like this, I've even seen kids use this as a little step to get up to the counter, this can become very front heavy and actually tip over. And it's big enough that it can trap a child or even an adult. But even if it doesn't fall all the way over and you have boiling liquid on top, that can spill out and injure anybody that's standing around. It's a very simple thing that you can do to keep it from tipping over, and that's by installing an anti-tip bracket. Now, since 1991, manufacturers have provided these to be installed. Unfortunately, a lot of people just don't get them installed. So when you buy a stove, make sure that when it's being installed, that this is installed right along with it, whether you do it yourself or the service person from the company that you buy it from. But it's very important that this be installed. And basically, it just hooks into the leg on the back of the stove. It may be mounted on the floor or the wall, and it'll just prevent this from tipping over. If you don't have one of these, you can buy one at an appliance store or a home center. That way, you'll be sure that this isn't a hazard in your kitchen.
The kitchen is not the only place in the house that you need to protect your kids or your grandkids. I'm here in the living room, and right down here on the hearth of the fireplace is another place that you can ensure their safety. Now, we've just simply attached these bumpers here so that there are no sharp edges for them to get injured on. Over here on the wall is a pretty common sight if you've got toddlers, because these little plugs that protect the kids from putting sharp objects in the receptacle are great, but the only problem with these is that you may forget to put them back in when you're done using the receptacle. Well, here is a great solution to that problem. Right over here, we've installed a new faceplate. This is a child safety faceplate. And what you do, if you go to plug something in, this swivels so that it opens up the receptacle, and as soon as you pull it back out, it snaps back into place to cover up the openings of the receptacle, making sure that none of the kids can put anything in there to hurt themselves. This does cost a little bit more than an average faceplate, but you know what, in the long run, it's well worth it.
Another area of the home where you have to be very careful about children's safety is the bathroom. Many serious burns occur in and around the home, and a large percentage of those are a result of scalding. Think about it this way. You work so hard to get that kid finally in the bathtub to take a bath, and then when you look away for a second, he reaches up and he turns the hot water on full blast. Now, it only takes 6 seconds for scalding to occur if the temperature on your water heater is set at 145 degrees, which is the way most of them are. Here's all you have to do. Turn that water heater down to 120 degrees, then it takes 10 minutes before scalding will occur, and you'll save a few energy dollars along the way. So a very simple little adjustment can make this room a lot safer for your family.
Hot water's not the only water where safety should be a concern. Millions of homes have swimming pools, and unfortunately, they're the site of far too many tragedies across our country. You should definitely have a fence surrounding your pool. But to really protect your family, you've got to have a guardian standing watch 24/7. You'll get that with a pool alarm. But since we're talking about the safety of your family, make sure you really research these things before you buy one. A good quality pool alarm like this one will be easy to install. It knows the difference between a twig or a child falling in the water. It activates almost immediately, and when it does, it communicates with the unit inside the house to give off a high decibel alarm, because when toddlers fall into a swimming pool, every second counts.
The modern compact fluorescent bulb has been on the market for over 20 years, so it's no surprise that they're one of the simplest things that you can do to make a green impact in your home. In fact, if every home in the U.S. were to replace just one bulb with a CFL, it would be equal to eliminating the emission of 1 million cars. Of course, you have to be prepared to pay just a little bit more for CFLs, but what I like to tell people is that green living starts with little baby steps. Replace just one bulb every other week or so until all of your bulbs are CFLs. Of course, even these long-lasting bulbs will burn out one day, so keep in mind that CFLs do contain a small amount of mercury. So don't throw them in the trash can. Use a household hazardous waste collection service in your area to dispose of these bulbs. Keeping our family safe is a priority for all of us, and that requires a little thought and effort to protect them. Some dangers, they're obvious, like a fire or an unprotected pool. But other things like household contaminants, scalding water, and carbon monoxide poisoning are just as dangerous, but it takes a little more of our attention to identify and prevent them. I realize what we talked about this week wouldn't be considered glamorous home improvement, but it is so important and really part of having a family and having a safe home. Now, nothing that we talked about would cost a lot of money, take a lot of time, or require a lot of skill, but it's so worth it. Hey, thanks for being with us here on today's Homeowner. We'll see you next week. Next week, we're checking out what's cool at the International Builder Show. Another thing you'll want to protect your family from is carbon monoxide, which is a byproduct of fire. Gas burning appliances.